You're listening to
They're gonna call it a hard foul. They're gonna call it a hard foul.
Good afternoon, everyone, or late good morning. This is they're gonna call it a hard foul. We're again here with my brother Mike on trade deadline day. We're gonna spend some time talking about a lot of the moves. It's been fucking wild, the NBA trade deadline so far. The amount of stars that have been moved, the amount of players that have been moved. Was completely wrong about what was going to happen with the CBA and what it would mean to trades because I've never seen a deadline like this. I can't remember one. Has been wild. Also, looking back at the season impressive win against the Cavs, looking ahead to the matchup against the Mavs, and this is going to be a two-part pod because we're also going to be speaking with Chris Curtavo from Dallas. He's a litigator out there who is very close with the Texas legislature, or at least understands what's going on out there. Had a great thread on why he believed Luka was moved, what it means politically out there, what role did Miriam Adelson play, and her move to get a casino, and the possibility of the Mavericks going to Las Vegas. Of course, this ties in with the Celtics as they are moving forward with their own ownership. And the Celtics made a move that I think was expected, but I do think raises some eyebrows from a cost-cutting perspective and what that might mean as this team goes up for sale. Mike, there's a shitload going on. You let me know where you want to start and we'll go.
Jim, why don't you take us off with some of the moves that have interested you over the last 2 days with the trade deadline? Like, what really stands out to you?
Well, the obvious, Jimmy Butler going to Golden State, and the kind of maneuvering that it took to get there. I mean, at one point, this was going to be an even bigger blockbuster than it turned out to be, where we're talking about Jimmy Butler going to Phoenix, Durant going to Golden State, Wiggins and other pieces going to Miami. But it sounded like Durant wants no part of Golden State. It made that pretty clear that he doesn't have a no trade clause, but he was pretty clear that he wanted no part of that reunion, which is a really interesting storyline. I don't know if some of the Draymond Green stuff is still top of mind for him with some of the comments that he put out there in the past. Maybe there was more that went on in that last season than has been previously reported. But I was surprised by that because I thought that was a place he would go back to. And obviously, it's easy to fit Durant in anywhere. He gives them more shooting. And those obviously makes them more potent than Jimmy Butler does. But the move in and of itself, I thought was interesting. I think it kind of speeds up the process for Golden State to either go boom or bust. Because of the only two directions they can go right now. I feel like this is either going to be their one last hurrah, or it's going to speed up the combustion of that franchise even more.
Yeah.
And they got, they didn't really lose a ton of assets. I thought Miami did well for themselves getting picks. Wiggins is a decent player. So I found that trade interesting, but I think we need to remind everyone, too, that, Jimmy Butler's a quitter and quit on the Miami Heat, and that's why he's in Golden State right now.
Yeah, another guy in the NBA that quit on this team and got moved. We'll see if it works out in Golden State. He hasn't played a lot the last 2 years. He's been injury prone at this point in his career, so we'll see if how available he really is. Certainly, if he's healthy, he adds an element of toughness there and a different kind of player than I don't think Golden State's really had as far as an isolation threat. So, and a elite defender on the wing position, which is stuff you need in the NBA. So, I mean, this could be a slam dunk if he's healthy. I don't know how much it moves the needle for him this year. Obviously, Steph Curry is somebody that has a history of making things work. So, I guess it's a wait and see. Miami's been playing well recently without him.
Yeah.
Added some more guys to the team, and they're starting to remind me a bit of the Nets with like a bunch of guys, but not really a direction. They got some good young talent in Miami, but no real superstar talent there anymore. So I don't know if they're just going to be a middling team for a while, which they have been. I feel like they're just continuing in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument to be made that you could and probably should consider moving on from Bam Adebayo this offseason, where his value is so high, and maybe you speed up this rebuild, and when the next superstar becomes available, you have the cap space and um, you know, the assets to go out and get him. So I think for Golden State, their issue is they don't have a ton of shooting. As a team that
No, they
is
don't.
known as a three-point ball, they really only have Curry and Buddy Hield that are, that rookie center Post. I forget his first name. His last name's Post, but he's a more permanent player. Um, that gives you any shooting. Jimmy Butler, I think most teams would be willing to give up that shot to him, that three-point shot, and live with him beating him with that. He does make them more potent now when um, Curry goes off the floor. He's a high IQ player, so he can fit in all those ways. Um, I think they're probably out there searching to get another piece before the 2 p.m. deadline here, whether or not they
Yeah, I
can.
know.
It'll be interesting.
Vucevic, Vucevic is a name that keeps coming up for them. I don't know how they make it work. I don't know if they got onto the tax apron. I have no idea if they can match salaries, but we'll see. We'll see if they're able to do it. I thought it was interesting that Brandon Ingram ended up in Toronto. It feels
Yeah.
like they acquire wings and try to make it work over there, which isn't a terrible strategy.
Well,
They didn't have to give up a lot to get him either. I think he could be a really good fit, especially if if he agrees to sign that 3 year max with them. Him and Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett feels like they have something going on there, and they got a great draft pick most likely. So that's a good trade for them. I think in New Orleans too, they were in a place where they have a wing, obviously, in Trey Murphy, who's starting to play really well. It didn't sound like Ingram wanted to be there anymore, so good for them for getting something at least before he walked for nothing. They
Yeah,
got one
no,
first.
I thought it was a decent move all the way around for everybody involved. I'm trying to find what year it is.
It's not this year. I know
No, it's
that.
not this year. So,
I think it's
whatever it
26.
is, look. I think this is a move that, like you said, he didn't want to be there anymore. New Orleans was looking to move him. If you're Toronto, how are you going to really get free agents up there is a serious question. So trying to trade for guys like this that are 20-point scorers and that are, still maybe have not reached their ceiling, although maybe Ingram has. But he allows you as a trade asset later on if you want to go out for a bigger fish. Um, so he makes them better. I think you're right. They see a core with him, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett. I doubt they all stayed there throughout the duration of their contracts. I think the only one that's probably guaranteed is Barnes with the higher upside. Um, but I think this is a pretty good move for them, and they've been active. Making a bunch of moves. They traded you touched on it a second ago with the Heat, Devion Mitchell this afternoon for PJ Tucker, and I think they picked up a pick.
Yeah,
So
second.
so they're making moves, but I thought this was a pretty good move. And if you asked me, Mike, 3 weeks ago, the biggest name that would get moved, he would be among them, and he's not even close to the
Yeah,
biggest name that's been moved, which is
and
it
then
just ran a real fascinating deadline.
the Lakers, I think they gave up a lot of draft capital yesterday, but
Yeah, the Mark Williams
this
trade you want to
this
get on. Yeah.
yeah this could be a guy that
Oh, I
um,
think so. Yeah.
they're in Charlotte. There's some videos you can watch the commentators talking about Mark Williams' lack of effort, which would show up quite a bit.
Mm.
He's also a guy that's put up 30 and like 15 a couple times this year and throughout his career. His issue has been injuries where he hasn't been out there, but um, he's definitely the rim runner that you would be looking for Luka to go to, like he had in Dallas. This could be a slam dunk trade if it works out. He's young; he could be there for a long time. I think I said on the last pod, I think the Lakers get lucky and they make these moves. They're going to find the big guy. I just knew this was going to happen. And I don't think they're done. I still think there's a move to be made in LA. And I do think if these guys are healthy, that LA can make it to the NBA finals. This is
Yeah,
a
I don't. I'm
great
not
move.
with you there.
I
And I'm
still
not going to
believe
get
it with
there.
the talent
Yeah.
that you have with Luka alone, surrounding him with guys who can play. It can be enough. He's going to show up in big games.
Yeah, I
He's
don't think
not
the pieces
not going to
match
be.
that well. But I hear what you're saying, and he's yet to be on the floor this year too. They gave up.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
no,
Mark
this
Williams is
trade is
back.
really
He's not hurt
interesting.
right.
What?
Mark Williams has been playing. He's back.
I mean, Luca. Luca hasn't played this year.
Oh, Luka hasn't played the
Yeah,
couple
yeah,
months. Yeah.
and he was playing at 270. So, um, I this trade is interesting
So
because he isn't a high upside guy. You wonder why the Hornets are so quick to. I guess they want the picks,
they're sick of
but
him.
they
They
must.
were sick of
There's
him.
something that that isn't right with them. I mean, because he's under team control next year for just the 6 million. Charlotte isn't in a cap situation. Then he's an RFA after that, so he's cost control. Um, and does going to LA get him straight? Well, who knows? It depends on the guy. Just because you're lining him up next to Luka and LeBron doesn't mean all of a sudden he's gonna say, "Okay, I need to be this now." He's also in LA.
It's funny how those things work out.
Sometimes
But
they
yeah,
work out. They don't always
yeah.
work out. You have superstars that get sick of guys like that really quick too, sometimes.
Mhm.
So this could be a great trade for the Lakers if, he's locked in and ready to go. They did give up a lot, though. They gave up a first round pick. They gave up Dalton Connect, who, especially early in the year, played really, really well for them and looked like a ready level player. He's obviously a great shooter. I think you need a lot of shooting around Luca, and because he's such an isolation player. Um, and you saw how that harmed Dallas last year by not having enough guys that can, hit the above the break threes. And now a lot of what was available to LA in that aspect is gone with Christie and Connect. Um, Even Austin Reeves, he doesn't really play that way. He's more of needs the ball to be effective. I do wonder, you say there's another move to make. I wonder if Austin Reeves is that guy. Not a great defensive player, good with the ball in his hands, becomes really redundant with Luca if he becomes the guy that they look to move before 2 p.m. to get some more shooting in there.
Yeah,
Because they
maybe.
definitely need it.
Yeah, I don't know if he could change his game up. He is shooting close to 40% from three this year, Austin Reeves, which if he's able to be more of a spot up player,
Why would he want
uh,
to do that when he hasn't got paid yet?
well, he's gotten pays. He did get a big extension with the
Okay.
Lakers.
Yeah.
Um, and Gabe Vincent's been shooting well as of late too, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Austin Reeves would be interesting. Um, I'd be buyer beware if I was another organization trading for Austin Reeves because I don't think he's going to go to the free throw line as much as he does in LA for any other franchise. I've always felt that way. I feel like he gets a crazy whistle. I don't understand why he gets that whistle. Um, but yeah, I would agree he would be the guy that they would move. It's an interesting move. I think that Charlotte did well. I know that looking on Twitter, Charlotte fans were upset because they saw the upside and they're sick
Yeah.
of. They just probably don't trust any moves that ownership
Hmm.
makes or any GMs make there because it just never seems to work out for them. Um, but those are future draft assets that could be really good. Um, if Luka doesn't work out, maybe he goes to another team, he doesn't sign with LA, LeBron retires, those could be lottery picks down the line. Um, so yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll certainly see. But there's been a lot of movement, Kevin. There's been a lot of trades. I don't know if you want to talk about the Celtics trade at all as in regards to their future plans, but I don't think it's a big deal as far as how it impacts the team this year. I don't think Springer really brought much to the team. He had one good moment, but certainly you can talk about the trade.
Yeah, the only other trade that's out there that's hanging, and you brought up before the pod before we get to Springer, is just DeAndre Hunter possibly going to Cleveland.
Mhm.
I don't know what that looks like, what they'd be getting back or whatever, but that would be a nice move for Cleveland, obviously.
Certainly would.
They need defensive wings, and he'd be helpful. You look, and we'll get more into it when we do the Cleveland matchup. But the Cleveland's been really good this year at defending the three ball and taking away the three, except when they play the Celtics. The Celtics are bombing away, and most of them are always open. All three games offensively, I thought the Celtics got whatever they wanted, and I think that probably was
Yeah,
out
I
to anyone in management there.
I think their 3-point defense for the last month or so hasn't been great. You saw last night, if Detroit could hit a fucking shot from three, it was all wide open, and they were playing those junk defenses against Detroit too. I don't know if it's because they were tied on the second night back to back, but they play zone defense a lot. If the Celtics could hit a fucking shot, they probably would have won by 20
Yeah, they would.
because that
That was a
they
game
did not play. They didn't play well defensively, in my opinion.
no,
Cleveland
no, that
didn't.
was a game the Celtics should have had 120, 125 on the board, and it just the ball wasn't going in. But they played really well. We'll get to it. The Springer thing, Mike. I don't know. I think this is the thing we've been talking about. Everyone's been talking about for a long time since the season started that they'd probably move him out, saves them $16 million. Um,
Yeah, it does.
I don't n expect really a move again before two, but I guess you never know. Then maybe a wing player becomes available that fits the number that they are comfortable with. Um, but I tend to believe that, it would have to be a player for player, like a Tillman going out and someone coming in. They have two open roster spots right now, so
Yeah,
they could sign a free agent that's out there or a buyout that's less than the taxpayer mid-level. That was making less or at the taxpayer mid-level before they got bought out. So guys like Lonnie Walker, you mentioned TJ Warren, maybe you call Gordon Hayward. I don't know. So those are the things,
mhm.
those are the veterans that are out there. Maybe there's guys in G League that we're not even thinking about that they bring in to fill that last roster spot. Um, but they're going to go fill at least one of those two last roster spots. It's just a question who that's going to be, whether they're going to do that this afternoon via the trade or whether that's going to come sometime over the next few weeks. So I think that's where it's at. As terms,
Yeah.
the ownership aspect, maybe they want to cut some costs to make the sale more appealing. Um,
How much did you really cut? You cut $15 million.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I mean, if there's ownership groups
But it
that need to
was a
cut,
cost cutting move.
mhm.
And for an ownership that's not going to be here anymore, that it does make it a little interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and probably speaks to future moves that'll have to be made. And again, why they
Yeah.
need to win it this year. Um, I think the buyout market could be interesting, not for the Celtics because they won't be able to sign any of these guys because they're in the second apron, but um, good chance Chris Middleton gets bought out, a good chance Bruce Brown gets bought out. Um, Certainly, both those guys would be interesting fits with Denver, who I believe could sign one of them. Um, Chris Middleton will probably find himself on a contender too, so it'll be interesting to see where those guys end up. I don't think they're going to make it.
I don't think Denver can. Can they?
I think they can. I
Okay.
don't think they're in the second apron. Um, it is hard to keep up with all that.
Yeah.
I don't know what Bruce Brown really offers anymore. He hasn't played much. And then Kyle Kuzma now plays in Milwaukee. I
Oh,
don't
we
think
forgot
it
about
does
that
much.
trade. Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly, Jim, I don't think it does a lot. It doesn't move it much for me as far as Milwaukee goes. I don't think he brings the defense that they need. Certainly can score the ball. He'll help a team that scores the ball a lot score more. Um, I would think with him coming in, maybe Bobby Portis is the next to go. I know they've been trying to probably move Bobby Portis for some defense. We'll see if they're able to do that.
Well, the rumor with Bobby Portis is Marcus Smart that's floating around.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that
Yeah.
would make sense for Milwaukee. Actually, it probably makes sense for Memphis too. I don't know if they'll be able to do the deal, but um, maybe you can squeeze whatever's left out of Marcus Smart defensively. he looked pretty good defensively when Memphis was in Boston when he was covering Jason Tatum. So he certainly has something left in the tank. We'll see if that deal goes through.
Mm.
But your thoughts on Kyle Kuzma? Do you think it moves the needle at all for Milwaukee?
I it makes him better. I mean, he's a better player than Middleton
Mm-hmm.
at this point. So like he gives them a starter level player that they didn't really have. They lacked any size on the wing at all, so that's an improvement. Um, I don't think it takes them up to a championship level team. I mean, he's been such a weird player for me, where I just don't feel like he's improved much since he's come into the league. Even watching him sometimes with the Wizards this year, it's like his possessions will be so the ball kind of stops with him, and they become like herky jerky. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like times he'll have an easy shot and then settle for something much more difficult. Not a great passer, an adequate defender. There wasn't really a market for him on a guy that was on an expiring, so that kind of
On a
gives you
team
an
that's very
indication of what the league thinks of him. You know,
yeah, on a team that's not very likable, he doesn't help the likability of
no,
Milwaukee.
no,
Um, yeah, well, I don't know. I still think that at this point, the way Milwaukee's playing, that they'd be lucky to get out of the first round. Um, yeah, other than that, I mean, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see if trades can be made just around the league. Orlando has looked so bad. I don't know what's going on with them. They've lost now 10 of 11.
it really shows how
And
important Jalen Suggs is, huh?
yeah, and then
Yeah,
in Portland, suddenly they've won 9 of 10. What the hell's
yeah,
that all
yeah.
about?
Good for them. Good for them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
NBA is kind of crazy.
and they have not been active in the trade deadline. I fully expected them to. I thought guys like Rob Williams and other guys would be moving. I even thought Wizards, you'd see more action. I thought Malcolm Brogdon would probably go somewhere. Maybe you do. I mean, it's 12
I
o'clock
mean, who
now.
wants them? Who wants
That's the
Malcolm
thing.
Brogdon?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't really have pieces to trade.
No, no. I guess other than Valanciunas, why can't I say his name?
Valanciunas,
Yeah,
he ended
Valanciunas.
up in, but they
Yeah,
didn't get anything for him.
no.
They didn't get much for him. And then, do they have their own first round pick this year?
I imagine. Yeah, the Wizards. Yeah, yeah.
All
They're in
right,
the tank
somebody else
mode
doesn't
for
own that.
Cooper Flag. They're in the tank mode for Cooper Flag.
Um, Yeah, all right. So we'll have to wait and see on that, Jim. I think let's talk about the actual basketball on the floor and the fact that in 3 games, in my opinion, against Cleveland this year, outside of Donovan Mitchell going absolutely nuts in the fourth quarter and the second time they've met this year, that Boston's clearly the better team when they match up head to head.
Yeah, yeah, and
I think
I
they win.
know Okoro's been out a couple of those games and Dean Wade, but you've had at the same time Jalen Brown's missed, um, KP missed two of the three. I think there's been other guys out in that game that was at Cleveland early in the year where Donovan Mitchell went off. Yeah, no, it just look. We touched out on it a little bit earlier in the pod that the Celtics are able to get whatever they want offensively, and they were clearly locked in. I mean, even though they weren't hitting shots, especially early in that game, I was never angry. Like I kind of sat there and watched it and thought, all right, if they lose this game, it's just one of those nights,
Mhm.
where it wasn't working for them because it wasn't just all threes they were missing too. They were getting shots.
Wide open foul line extended shots, every single one of them would
They missed
miss.
some layups. They missed some point
Yeah.
blank and look, Cleveland did too. Cleveland missed some real easy shots, especially early in that game too. But I felt like it was more stressful for Cleveland to get looks than it was for the Celtics. And I thought the Celtics contested a lot better than Cleveland did. Al Horford was fantastic. I take back everything I said. He does not look old. He was great defensively. He shot the ball well. He was
Mhm.
just picking up guards. He was awesome. He was just
Big game
he
out.
was all
Big game out.
and they all game long. And look, I think we said this even prior to the 76ers game. Like I didn't expect a good effort against the 76ers, but I was pretty positive they give it a good effort on this. And they did. There was multiple efforts on a lot of possessions where they would either get an offensive rebound or cause a foul or just like, get to the floor, deflections, ball pressure. There was just constant multiple effort. The ball was moving. when the Cavs went zone, maybe it took them a couple possessions before they got Tatum to the nail, but once they did, they got whatever they wanted there. The only lull in the offense was for about 5, 6 minutes in the third quarter to start the third.
To
And
start. Yeah.
then I think Cleveland got it to six. Joe called a timeout, and I don't
The
think
uh
I don't think
the
Cleveland got
out
a
of
stop the rest
timeout.
of the quarter, you know.
Yeah, the out of timeouts were awesome in that game, and they haven't been great recently. But the Celtics scored basically out of every single one of them in the OTAs. Um, and I said to you on the last pod, and I was texting you during the game, get the ball in Derek White's hands in the fourth quarter.
Oh yeah.
Outside of Jason Tatum, there isn't a guy I
Good
trust
job
more
bringing him up. He was awesome.
on this roster. I didn't understand the last like minute and a half, 2 minutes why they weren't just putting the ball in his
Yeah.
hands. They were going back to JT for ISO, and I was just texting I'm like, if they want to put this game away, just give it to Derek White.
Well, there's definitely
He's going to make
questions
the
about those
pass or
last
he's
two
going to get the
minutes.
free.
Yeah.
Yeah, those last 2 minutes weren't great, and this is pretty typical of the Celtics in the last 2 minutes going on a while now. I think the solution of those last 2 minutes is to run the offense through Derek White.
I don't think
Um,
I don't think the offense was bad. I thought, and you were right. Derek White was hot. They should have went to him more, but I thought overall they got pretty good looks. Made missed some. I thought the thing that was confusing to me was why was Jaylen Brown not back in the game? That was the part that like I just because the mistakes that were happening on defense were like
for
Peyton Pritchard.
Peyton Pritchard.
And
Yeah.
like I didn't get that. I liked being the double big. I like the size. Brown can maneuver around these screens. I mean, he fouled on the 4 point play. He screwed up
Did
on
Joe
another
think he was
on
fouled
three.
out? Like, I don't
You
know.
know, then
It
he
was
had that
weird.
turnover on the other end. I don't know. Did Brown say these guys are playing well? Keep me out. I didn't see the post game interviews, but that was kind of mind boggling to me on why he didn't go back into the game. And the way he was playing offensively in that game, like if things broke down, you could just really have given him the ball and he was just driving to any space he wanted to.
Yeah.
And
He got a
Cleveland
little
was just
wild
bouncing off him.
in the third and fourth quarter. He was a little wild and out of control. Brown was. So maybe that was part of it. Maybe him being in foul trouble, Joe felt like he was a little out of his game and he trusted to just finish
Yeah.
with this group. I don't. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm glad that Celtics were able to close despite missing free throws after
But that would
hitting.
have been a storyline, right? Yeah.
Yeah, after going 12 for 12 in the first three quarters, I think they went like one of four to 10 the game. I don't know. Um, but they're clearly better, Jim. They just are. They're clearly the better team. And I don't count this as a KP played game. That wasn't Christoph Porzingis on the floor against the Cavs. I don't know who that was because Christoph Porzingis hits those shots.
Yeah, but on the defensive
He
end,
doesn't.
he had a huge impact.
He did, and he also made a lot of mistakes defensively. I thought their best bigs defensively actually were Al and Luke Cornett against Cleveland. Um,
Yeah, he stopped a lot at the
he
rim.
was getting beat up on the boards quite a bit too against Jared Allen. Yeah, but
They don't drive when he's in the game. They just don't. They don't drive. Like they tried to bring him out a few times, and you were right on how they were attacking him and then bringing him out and getting offensive. But like the drive is basically gone. They don't
well,
even
yeah,
try
that's
it.
going to be
You
one of
know.
the key to victories in the playoff series against Cleveland. Is they're going to drag the Celtics bigs out. That's what the game plan is, and it's the pressure on your guards and your forwards to rebound on the defensive end will be a key to victory in that series because that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to beat you up on the offensive glass and get those possessions. And I will say a lot of those offensive rebounds were long rebounds, so I don't really count that against the Celtics as not being able to clean up a possession. But I think that will be, a big factor is Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and these guards getting down there and rebounding because they're going to drag our bigs out. That's what they want to do.
Well, the other component to this is so Evan Mobley scores most of his points from around the rim. Has been really, really good player this year, good defensive player. Um, and they don't love playing the two of them together all the time. Usually after the start of that game, they split them up. That's the Kristaps Porzingis factor. He was completely ineffective offensively to the point where they didn't play him down the stretch. And went with Jared Allen instead because it gives you the opportunity for more second chance points.
Yeah, he
And
seemed
the
to
other
struggle.
play, oh, go ahead.
He seemed to struggle with the size because even when Luke came in, he tried to drive on Luke Cornett, and Luke was stopping him at the rim. He wouldn't be able to get a good shot off. So
And
um,
he dominated the Celtics in the game in Cleveland earlier without
when
Porzingis.
KP didn't play, yeah,
Yeah, so like I think that's a huge element to this with the KP factor. The other play too, Mike, was speaking of Evan Mobley that I thought was huge. It was either late in the third or early in the fourth, and Holiday for the most part had a shit game, but the Celtics offense was a little bit stagnant. Mobley came out on Holiday and he just muscled him under the hoop
the free throw line,
and
yeah.
drew the foul, allowed the Celtics to get their defense set up, settled things down, and then they got cooking. Um, and we're talking about a 6'1" guy going after a 7-footer and backing him down and getting to the line. It was just a really, really smart play and impressive play, and one of those things that fly under the radar, especially when you have Derek White out there hitting contested 31-foot threes.
Yeah. And
Those
actually, White got fouled on a 3-2. He should have been at the
he
free
did.
throw line.
Yeah, the officiating was not good. Yeah.
No, not for the Celtics. Yeah, people on Twitter are really like, we got to move Holiday. That contract's horrible. Are you not watching him on the defensive end this past week or so? Because he's been pretty locked in, and I think it shows his value on that end uh, against Philadelphia in the comeback and against Cleveland pretty much all game. I thought he was locked in defensively, and that's what you brought him in for.
He's just
He's
so
going to
awesome.
have a ton of key moments in the playoffs.
Well,
He
that's
is.
it. He was so awesome last year in the playoffs that it people forget there were points in the regular season that people were really disappointed, including on this pod, with how he was playing. And then the playoffs came around and he was fantastic. And maybe that's a medicine I need to take with Al Horford too. Like maybe back off these guys, get him some rest every once in a while. But guys with track records like this, I think it's going to be all right. Mike, here's my
Three
advice
more wins
question.
for my 3 more wins for my prediction
Oh
to be
yeah,
read.
yeah. You guaranteed Cleveland was going to win.
Yeah, and
Maybe you should be giving out betting advice. You guarantee to win, and now you got 3 more wins. Tonight should be pretty tough. I do have an advice question for you. You
okay, what
are
is it?
you are the executive at NBC Sports Boston. What do you do
Okay.
with this telecast? What do you do with the Celtics telecast as the chief executive officer at NBC Sports Boston?
Oh, I fired Brian Scalabrine and I put in Eddie House. That's
Yeah,
my first move, like right off the bat.
you went
And
into
I think Drew Carter actually did well with Eddie House. Like he was talking about the basketball game actually on the floor because Eddie House was kind of forcing him to. And he wasn't talking about like how he loves all these white point guards and where a player was born or whatever the hell is
He
going
does love
on.
white point guards. Loves them. Loves white
Yeah.
point guards. Yeah.
Um,
He gets an
no,
erection every time Peyton Pritchard checks into the game.
yeah, I think there needs to be drastic moves there. I'm still willing to give Drew Carter an opportunity to work with another guy. Maybe that could carry him a little bit because he's brand new to the industry.
Yeah.
But he's clearly being taught by Brian Scalabrine. And Scalabrine's Jim, he's horrible. Like his podcast, his show is great, and he's tapped in around the league, and that's fine. And maybe he can be a commentator at halftime and like doing pregame stuff, which I think he'd be fine with. But calling these games, he's more excited about the players on the other team than the Boston Celtics. He doesn't care about what's happening on the floor sometimes, where he's more like, oh, so and so Trey Mann's about to get hot from the Hornets, and oh, I love,
Talking
Anthony
about
Edwards
who
is
should
in
be
his
an all-star. You go three
yeah, like
sessions into a game and you're not even.
then
They
you
were,
turn on the New York Knicks podcast. Jesus, you turn on the New York Knicks' game the other night. I forget who they were playing, but it was a great game. And Mike Bean and his partner Like they're breaking
Oh,
down
Frazier, yeah,
every
yeah,
possession and
yeah.
telling you what's happening on the floor. And it's like, oh yeah, when Mike Gorman and Tommy Heinsohn were calling games, this is what it was like outside of Tommy throwing like temper tantrums that were hilarious and awesome. Like this is what it's supposed to be. The Celtics don't have that. It's a horrible broadcast. That's what I would do. I would get rid of him and Chris Forsberg. I get rid of him too because like I can't stand that guy.
Yeah, the standard is that's a pretty high standard. Obviously, Breen's a national guy, but I listened to that too, Mike, the New York Knicks part, uh,
Broadcast.
broadcast, and it was such a professional broadcast. I feel like Scal and Drew Carter, it's like they want to be a bro podcast. Like they
Yeah,
want to be bros. Like at one point, oh, you got to really know the NBA to understand that joke. I'm looking, well, the ball was just kicked out of bounds. I don't know who was kicked out of bounds by. Everyone's screaming about it, and you guys don't even know what happened. It's not going to replay. And like it drives me crazy. The other thing, and I think Abby Chin does a good job, don't get me wrong, but the worst time to come back with an in-game interview is when there's a challenge. And
they
as a
always do it.
consumer, you're wondering what the hell happened. You want to see the replay because like you want a confirmation of what actually happened. And you don't even get the replay and the ball's being thrown in one way or the other. There's no talk about what the referee just said. I mean, they should have the camera on the referee for us explaining what happened. And there's all the time, there's a big play like Derek White, you mentioned we got fouled on the three. It sure looked like to me from the camera angle. And what if we're wrong? Like we could be wrong. Like when the replay actually is up close on that, it could show that there was no foul and the officials who are professional made the right call. As a consumer, I'd feel better about that. Just knowing. And I can move on,
Tommy would have been losing his mind. And we would have got like 7 different angles why Tommy would be like flipping out whether it was really a foul or not. You need to have a homer in Scal's seat. And the Celtics have, I want to be cool, make it about me broadcast. It's not about the product on the floor. They don't understand Boston one bit, Jim.
They don't realize that the guy like you and me that's tuning in for game 46 against the shitty New Orleans Pelicans are there for the basketball game. No one's tuning in. You're not getting new viewers of like that because Scal and Drew are cool. That this sounds like a Manosphere podcast or a Bro podcast or whatever's out there right now. You're not getting new viewers. These are diehard fans that emotionally invested into this game. That's who's watching that game during the season. So just be focused on the product on the floor. Be emotional when there's calls that happen against the Celtics or for the Celtics. Break down the play that just happened because we're all basketball nerds. You used to play in the league. You coached in Golden State with Steph Curry. Like, bring that stuff. Don't have a conversation for 5 straight possessions about, why Tyrese Maxey should be in an all-star game over Darius Garland because I don't care. Yeah. I barely care that Jaylen Brown's on the all-star team. Like, I do not care. I care about the game that's on the floor.
Yeah, and that's why I would replace him with Eddie House right away. Eddie House was a homer, and I thought he did a great job the other day. And I think that's exactly what you need. You need that.
And he's funny. He's actually funny. Like the line, Eddie, why did you like playing on the road so much? Oh, it got me away from my ex-wife. It was like, okay, that's funny. It's relatable. He didn't spend 30 minutes talking about how other guys can't stand their wives. And I knew this guy, and Paul Pierce would never behave. It was like, no, I want to get away from my ex-wife, but I really like what Cornette's doing out here. And it was good. It was funny,
Yeah, either that or just promote Max.
Yeah.
I just don't. Scals is so fake too. And
he's not funny.
And it's such fake anger when he's upset about a call. Like he doesn't really care. He doesn't. He's not. I don't get the vibe that Drew Carter and Scals are invested in this team winning. I think they're there for a job and they love basketball, but they're not homers. And this is a home team broadcast. And I feel like we got a crew from NBA.com calling the games. I would make that move today. I would make that move today. That's my answer. Um, I just don't understand.
Yeah, it was shocking. They brought in a
Oh
guy.
man,
Drew Cott is not from Boston. And there's guys in the market that would love this opportunity that have grown up with the Celtics, like Mike Gorman did,
hmm
and has been really, really good at it. I didn't want Sean Grandy to come up because his storytelling can be insufferable,
drives me
especially if it
nuts.
gets on TV. But this is not a good product. It's not, and it's not just Scal and Drew. It's also just the whole production. When they give replays, when they don't, in and out of timeouts. There are interviews with the double box of Abby and who she's interviewing, and in the smaller box, the game. Like the fan that's watching these
Disaster.
games, this is not a nationally it's hardcore fans.
Yeah,
These are the
and they
guys
don't
that are
have
tuning in.
anybody on the pre and post and halftime broadcast that actually breaks down the game. They don't have that.
No.
Chris Forsberg sits there and talks about his favorite plays. That's all he does. And, that's not Eddie House's jam. He's not doing, they used to have Donnie Marshall back in the day. He was like great at that. Then for some reason he went to broadcast NASCAR. But they used to have like guys that would do that. And like all of it kind of stinks. All of it kind of stinks. Like there's no breaking down of what's actually happening in the game. Like I hardly ever get that. I
Yeah.
hardly ever get it. Are catching something before it happens. Like Scals would be like, "Oh, I know what's happening here," but he doesn't fucking tell us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad. It's so bad. That would be my answer. I would make full house changes to everything.
All right. With that, Mike, I think that wraps up this pod. You got the Mavs tonight against the Celtics. I think it's going to be a tough game. I expect Anthony Davis to play, and I expect it to be a real locked-in Mavs team, kind of angry with how everything has happened. And I think it's
I
it'll be
expect
different.
Kyrie Irving to go like 2 for 15 from the floor, like he always does in Boston. The Celtics win. That's what's going to happen.
There you go. That's probably yeah.
He's a little bitch. That's what we'll see it again tonight.
The Celtics are going to have to hit shots if Anthony Davis plays because between him and Gafford, it's going to be tough to find good opportunities at the rim.
Yeah. Celtics are going to win tonight. I already told you.
All right. All right. There's a guarantee. I'll see you.
Yeah.